I don't want to bore you, but I want to start with the installation instruction, how we start doing this. This is what we got. We got two samples over here. This is a flange unit. This is non-flange unit. This job site that we are, all the windows are non-flanged. This is a lower windows LDA architect on this project, and Youngblood is the contractor on this project. And we can start with a non-flange unit, but the only difference those two samples, because I want to take one of them down, is this one has one paper underneath this unit, and this one has two where the flanges are. So I'll show you the differences between those two. I'm gonna move this on the side a little bit right now and concentrate on this one. I'll bring that back later on. Those two are the similar, which is a part of this. So what happens is when we show up on a job site, we tell our contractors, like, look, all we want from you is waterproofing, right? So exterior. In this case, we use Blueskin. I mean, it can be used anything. We're not married to any manufacturer. It doesn't matter which product we use. It's just right now we're using 3M tape and Type-R Flex because it's available. You can use anything. One thing you have to check with your architect or your contractor, manufacturer, most importantly, if those two products you mix each other, they are compatible, okay? Right now we're using Blueskin, 3M tape, Type-R Flex for the pen, and Dowel 995 for sealant. So when we show up on a job site, if you're early on a job site, what we do, we talk to our contractor and say, look, when you put in Blueskin, leave the top open, so when we come in, we'll put the windows in, waterproof it, and then we can bring this down. Usually when we do it is we can use this, and when you have a drip cap, you know, and then you can go over the drip cap. Let me see if I have a sample with me. I should have one here. Yeah, I think I brought it. Like, for example, if you have a trim, right, you can put the trim in, and then you can put a drip cap in, for example, if this is traditional. And then later on, let's say if it's lower, later on your Blueskin can go over it. The key is make sure that you have enough of the flushing tape passes so you can put your nail or a screw through the drip cap so it will penetrate the sealant, and then your waterproofing goes over. You can cut whatever you want. So when we show up, let's say waterproofing is done. If it's already done, you can pull it up. You can do the by recommendation of Blueskin. You can use Blueskin flushing. Put a sealant, they recommended sealant, so you can solve that problem and no water goes down. I personally don't like it. I like the overlaps. It's my preference. I called Blueskin. I asked them if I can put another one over it. They said I can do up to 3 times before I lose
permeability.
Permeability. Thank you very much, Indra. Permeability. So if you can do it, you can add another layer of Blueskin over the other one. So that will work. So that's another option, you can do it. But anyway, let's say we show up, the Blueskin is already done. So we put the windows in. The first thing we do is put one layer of Type-R. We use Type-R in this case. So we put the first layer, the first one. Flush, usually this is about a foot long, foot tall, you know, goes down, and we pass about a foot on each side, longer. And then we do this first. And later on, we do our pen, Type-R Flex, goes over. Right now we use Type-R Flex. I'm just going to pull this out so you can see it. Then we do our Type-R Flex. Next goes over this piece of paper. This piece of paper represent all traditional. I learned this from my contractor that we used to use tar paper. So what happened is 2 shingles, if you do traditional house, traditional shingle shake, so it goes 2 shingles goes under, 2 shingle goes over. Any water drains between the shingles, right? And then where our guys, before they do Type-R Flex, they cut a paper on the back. Right now, a lot of flexible flushing comes already pre-cut. So you measure the depth of your window, make sure this joint stays in the back of the window, so it's down, it doesn't stick to it. And later on, when you finish installation, you can lift it up and it becomes a back dam, right? So we go at least 6 inch up and then do that. And then next step it is we put a second layer of the paper. So if we are doing a non-flange window, we don't need the second layer. But if we're doing a flange window, we put a second layer. This second layer, what it does, it creates a drainage. What happens is if any water on this pan, it will drain between these two paper. What happens is now our flanges is going to go on top of this. Now you created a drainage system between these two papers. So what happens is we have ability to put a seal on all four sides, and then our window will go against, our flange goes against this paper. So let me show you now how we did over here. So here, if we look very closely, we'll see now we have two paper, 1 and 2, and the flange goes right on top, right here. This is the flange, but we put a sealant behind it before we get to it. Now, as soon as we do the second layer, we come back to this, we rub our buck with the 3M tape. Right now 3M tape, but any flushing, we rub our buck, we go all the way inside the opening. Where we look at this here, our flushing tape passes our window about an inch and a half. We usually pass inch. If your windows come flush to the 2x6 wall, we usually wrap around it in the face of it. So it solves two problems. I mean, that's not a problem, but it solves two things. One, if you do in a passive house, if you have another air barrier inside it and you wrap around, you can go over it. Or some of our contractors, architects, they ask us to put another flushing tape inside over the window, goes on the flushing, so it does solves that too. We'll get to that point. But right now we do this, wrap the buck all the way in and outside. So if we don't have flanges, this tape will go a little bit longer. I'll tell you why later on. So then as soon as we have our buck, so you don't have to go past 2 when you can go past 2 inches from the corner, because that's the size of your flange. Later on, we're going to put another tape over it. And then we put sealant all 4 sides, all the windows, 4 sides, which means going on this paper all the way up and behind the flanges. And the windows goes in with the flanges. Some manufacturers, you can nail, some manufacturers we screw. So I recommend screws, either galvanized or stainless steel, flat head, so it doesn't stick out too much. We put the screws in all the way around, and then we put a second layer tape over the flanges and over that layer of the flushing and over the waterproofing. So this second layer tape, we usually talk to the architect or the contractor. Usually it's a site supervisor we concentrate on, because he's the one who or she tells us what the size of the trim they use outside of that window. Let's, for example, the reason I say the size of the trim, because what we want to do when you use the trim, we want to make sure that flushing passes the edge of the trim about an inch or so. Inch and a half. I usually go about inch and a half. But if you look at an AIA standard, they usually say from the window it should pass 9 inches. A lot of our contractors don't like it because it costs a lot of money. But I minimum say pass about inch and a half to from your trim. The reason is, if you're doing this and then your siding comes in, at least you have this gap over here. At least if any water gets in that gap, it will travel on the flushing, not on the waterproofing, travel on the flushing and get on your paper and then drains out, right? This is the situation. And then for the top, we usually ask question, was the trim on the top? Because if it's the same size, then it's okay. We go a little bit bigger on the top, because we want to make sure when you put your drip cap, that flushing tape you have, it passes your drip cap. When you're nailing your nails, that nails go through the flushing, will self-seal the nails, right? And then later on, when you wrap your waterproofing over it, it will cover the drip cap and the nails and all that. But the top is usually a bit taller. The bottom, it doesn't matter as much as long we can cover it. Because what we want to do, we want to cover the flange and go over this second layer paper. So what it does, it helps any wind coming through, any wind-driven rain, anything. So it will just hit the flushing, in the flange, it won't go. But that's not at the end of it. What we do, the next thing before we finish our final detail outside, we come around, we take a sealant, which we use structural sealant Dal 995. We put a bit of small sealant all around four sides of the window, all around. So what it does is seals the flushing to the window. Let's say if in a different temperature, if the flushing doesn't hold, this sealant will hold the flushing there. Or like depends on the manufacturer, again, it will seal this joint where the flange meets the window. So that's our final detail, so we complete our exterior. So then we move interior portion of it. So when we come to the interior of it, what we do, again, we make sure we insulate on the RO between the window and header or the gems or the bottom, whatever. And then we do baccarat and sealant interior. So this baccarat and sealant is the most important. What happened is it blocks all the air or water that has to come in. Because what we are trying here to do is we're not trying to block the water going around the windows, because it could be condensation, could be water. What we're trying to do, any water around the window come inside, because any water gets around the window here or anywhere, it's going to go into the pen, right? So when it gets into the pen, we already have a drainage system, it will drain out. So we want to make sure there's no air coming inside the house past the window. It's very important, because if there's any air past the window, what's going to happen, you have a negative pressure inside the house, so it will become like a straw. It will just drive all the water with it. So we want to make sure that interior sealant is one of the most important. Of course, we're doing everything so no water comes from outside. But if ever your window fails, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever it is, if ever your window fails from anywhere, if any water gets in your pen or around your window, you want to make sure end up to the bottom of the window on the pen, and it drains out through this drainage system we created. So soon we do our sealant, then we lift up our pen, just like that. We kept a gap over here so we can show everybody that you have to seal the bottom too. And then we use two different, hands-on product. This is just a regular corner bit, plastic corner bit, and there's just the strapping. We're showing it that you can use anything you want as long as you lift up, and this should be closed. And like I told earlier, that you usually measure it needs to be tight to the window, or door. And what happens is if you pull this paper out, it will stick to it, and you can't lift it up like this way, it sticks. But if you leave it there and then you put a strapping, what happens is you can use this strapping as a nailer, so you can put your seal on it and goes up and kind of whatever the detail you want to come up, this will become your nailer. This will become your nailer and do it. Or if your trim detail is got to go lower, then you remove this and then put your trim against the window. A couple of key things about this. One more thing actually, and then another option we recommend that our architects come in and ask us to do the same thing. We put another flushing inside, from window to this. So if for another extra protection, that if your sealant fails, for example, it doesn't hold, this tape will stay there. But to me, I think you use either flushing or the sealant, one or the other. But some people ask us to do both. We do it, no problem. Costs a little bit more, but people want to be safe. If they are in a certain environment, they want to be safe, we do that. So another thing we do, if it's non-flange unit, I'll come back to this detail one more time. But if it's a non-flange unit, this is what happens is we don't have a flanges. So exterior is baccarat and sealant, same way we do interior. We talk about again the depth of the trim, how wide it is, and all that. And exterior we seal this. If you talk to building signs, a building signs usually recommends says, you know what, don't even put the sealant outside, because what happens is you want to let the windows breathe, let the air, water come and go. The most important for them is inside, which I agree. But again, we're working in a certain environment like this, and a lot of our contractors, it's not going to fly. So let's forget that. But one thing we do, we will not install the windows without weep holes. So every non-flange window install, we have a weep holes. We have two weep holes, one on each end at least. Or sometimes we leave entire bottom open. We don't even seal it. We seal on the three sides. And some of our contractors want us on top of our sealant, they want us put another flashing like this, just seal it. We have to let, of course, dry our sealant, later on do it. But we make our own weep holes and we use that and our weep, and we can do different sizes, different shapes, and of course one of our contractors said if you do it, why the water will collect on the side, so we made a hole on the side, so now the water won't collect it. So it goes right here inside and the sealant goes all around it and it does the trick. If any water gets on a pen, it will just weep out. So make our own weep holes, but everything else in non-flange units is the same except the background sealant outside and inside, and if we need another extra flushing tape, we'll do that too. So there's another couple things happens is you got to be paying very good attention to it. This is where we start talking to architect and our contractors ahead of the project, because it's very important to understand the detail, understand the waterproofing. Like for example, if the house, let's say contemporary, and doesn't have traditional trim. If it has a traditional trim, what happens? You just trim it right against the window, it's fine, not a problem, you can do that. Let's say it doesn't have traditional trim, it's a regulate. When you do regulate, we purposely did this way so we can show that. If you have a regulate, if you try and put a regulate, see, it goes against the sealant, it doesn't get tight to your window. Now what happens is we come back, we start clean the sealant, we push the sealant a little bit deeper into the RO so the regulate can go really tight to your window, right? Or depends the type of the trim. When we had a project in Connecticut the other day, one of our architects wanted the sheetrock actually go behind the window and leave about an 1/8 of an inch nice detail reveal all around, which meant for a contractor he had to make the opening about 2 inch bigger all around, like 1 inch on each side actually to be bigger. So we were able to put 5/8 plywood on each side of the opening, about 1 inch short from the inside of the window. So we will waterproof it on that and then seal to that plywood, and then the sheetrock would have gone behind the window and leave that really shadow line, about 1/8 of a shadow. It came out really nice actually, but it was a lot of work. So if we didn't prepare it ahead of time, we didn't know ahead of time, we couldn't do it. So it's very important. That's where we talk to our architects and understand the details. Or for example, if we're using brackets, for example, straps, and we need to understand the trim detail on the straps on the windows. So the way we do our straps, the straps sometimes traditionally we shim behind the straps, so the straps comes out and then fold it, or we screw it through. If there's a specific detail, like I said, if it was very narrow windows, like steel window, and then the sheetrock goes right behind the window almost, or tight, there's no room for the strap. So it means either we do direct anchoring, or we custom order the strap, so we'll have a Z shape and goes in the back and comes out. There's different ways we can do it. And another one is that if we're using a strap and then we're folding over the framing, what happens is when you do your plaster and what it comes to, it just builds out. It doesn't sit flat. And again, if it's a sheetrock drywall return and you have a corner bit, it's all over the place, which means you need to router each strap to make sure that it recesses in. So there's a lot of details to consider before you getting on a job site. For us, it's very important. That's where when we meet our architects, we talk about what kind of interior finish they're looking for, what's exterior trim is, exterior finishes, and we try to translate that on the plans as much as we can. We ask our architects to do that, so it goes to the job site, gets to the contractor, gets to the framer on the field. Because what happens is, if you don't look at those details deep enough, understand about those things, you can't explain to your framers, and they cannot frame it the way you want them to frame. And then what happens, it costs a lot of money redoing it, because we show up on a job site, a lot of job site, and then what happens is our guys call us like, we can't install the windows. And we're like, why? The RO is not too big, and there's a center screen issue too. We constantly end up in that situation where we show up on a job site, we know there's center screen it's bigger. RO is bigger than your door. So what happens is you need two separate ROs, one for the door, one for the center screen. And then a pocketed door situation is where we have pocketed door and we have to come up with a drainage system for it, and then the depth of the walls inside and outside, and then if you add a screen to it or if you add a shade to it. So those are the things that's very important to talk about it and understand on a shop drawing. Of course we can't 100% predict everything, but it will at least minimizes the mistakes and minimizes the cost and redo work that it requires to do on a job site. So those are the things we constantly talk about, and the waterproofing is one of the most important for us because we realize that house is getting really tight, the technology is changing constantly, the flushing, the product is changing constantly. So we want to make sure that those are things done right. Again, we're learning every day. We're adding things to it. We're adding new notes, adding new products, adding new ideas to it, and then we're learning from our architects, from our contractors, and we'll try and share with everybody. I don't know if I missed anything. I would like ask Andrea to see if we missed anything so we can add to this conversation with you guys.
I think that's pretty much it, but we're here to help. Like I said, we have all of our installation instructions and how we do things that we're happy to share with people, and leave comments or reach out to us with any questions you have, and hope you enjoyed this and let us know how else we can help.
Yeah, and again, yes, please, if you need any of our installation instruction and detail, we have all in a PDF. We can send it to you, and we're not hiding, we're not holding back. We want to share, we want to make sure everybody has it, and if you can use it, that'll be great, but it's on some project, it will be overkill, it will be way too much. So you need to kind of pick and choose to make sure that is this the right system to use for this project? Like everything else, every window is different for every project. So you can't use one, it will not, one style will not fit for all the projects. So it has to be customized. All right?
All right, thanks. Hope you guys have a great day.
Bye.